start recording. How are we? How is everyone? What have you we're gonna do kind of a combined check-in because I'm like all energized. So I want to
Obviously, Claire.
I want that to have a like to not get too sleepy.
Yeah.
Um sorry, I have to do this because I've got a slightly wounded arm that was recovering, and this is my check-in. And then I was swimming to try and help it heal, and I did too much, and now I've kind of made it go backwards, which is sad and frustrating. And it is what it is. So that's my check-in. How about both of you?
Okay, I can. I think I'm fine. I'm in a process, I think, releasing stuff, which is in part difficult. Not difficult. No, it's not difficult. It takes energy.
Hmm.
Um, And I'm doing something in this moment still I'm not very good in, because I have to, this is a shoe of my daughter. And this important part, which is just moving when you move with this shoe, it's like that. So
Oh,
this very important part that gives the joy of wearing it fell off. And I promised to fix it, and I'm not good at this stuff. So but I'm
you're not good
finishing.
at sewing?
Huh?
You're saying you're not good at sewing?
No, not well. To be honest, I never tried before I got a daughter. I just went to my mom and said, "You know how to do that? Would you once again?" And yeah. And
Okay.
when she wasn't there, I had a boyfriend who could do it or something like that. So I never. Yeah, that's it for my part, I think.
Okay. Thank you. Um, and also, why don't I just ask you now, have you have you noticed anything different this week as we go through this focused time on our sort of wild soul spirit or wild soul artist? Do you think the processing that you're referring to has been stimulated in any way or supported in any way by the work we're doing?
I would say my feeling is that things are converging,
Yeah.
that there's lots of stuff going on. For my part, like I feel there's lots of information coming in from the outside, but also um, in my perception, I think I had quite an interesting um, maybe perception after our last meeting. Should I tell about that?
Yeah, why not? Why not? Yeah.
Okay, so I last week I did this assignment, and there was this feather, you know.
Yes. Yes.
So part of what I was fascinated by when I found the feather was its fuzziness. There's this part where things get very. Is it called fuzzy? I
Yeah.
think it is. It.
I mean, that is a word. It depends if that's the word you're wanting.
I refer to. Wait.
I can look it up in the German translation.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, okay.
I can. I'm referring to this part.
Yeah, it's sort of furry, fuzzy. Yeah.
Yeah, so you know, it's not like having a clean definition of form or shape.
Fuzzy. Yeah, that's fuzzy.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been, yeah, looking at that and thought, okay, the feather is like, you know, a way of a writer to create realities in a way.
Yes.
So, and I thought, how funny that in the form of this feather, there's already this fuzziness of reality. And I had been thinking about that. And I think, yeah, in the morning, that was on Sunday, last Sunday, I'd doing a puzzle with my daughter. And it was a jungle picture. And there was this black panther showing up. And she was curious and asked, okay, where do they live? Where do those animals live? And we looked it up and okay. And later in the evening, I went to bed and thought, okay, one poem. I will read one poem. And I picked up a little collection of Rilke. I don't know how you pronounce them in English.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was just like, okay, I'll find it. And I closed my eyes and did this whoosh and opened, and it showed up this poem of The Panther. I don't know if you know the translation. It's very interesting in German. It's like a portrait of this animal in a kind of zoo. And it's in a cage. And
Right.
it's in the sound of the poem really reflects the panther and its movement and its state of being. Wait, I suppose it wouldn't be in English as here's I will find a link to it. Yeah, it's even in the wiki because I think it's really famous. Yeah. Okay, I'll put the link to this because it goes on from here, and that was really interesting for me. So for me, I noticed in this moment, the first time when I read that, and I've read that quite
Thank you.
sometimes, that the panther could also be that the poem could also reflect at the same time our mind, because it's talking about this panther going in circles and even more circles in its little cage, and he's getting so tired and so numbed by this state. So, and I felt like, yeah, that could also be a metaphor for the mind in general. You know, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. And I was jotting that down and found it was, well, this is just my notes. And this is, I looked later, it's just the paper that I had to sign to get the vaccine. So funnily enough, it came, you know, on this part of the reality that is so fuzzy and where we are all so in our minds. It just came by accident. I wrote this idea down there. And yeah, and then I thought, and look, and all this stuff is coming to me in my own room. And it was like, I don't know if I can explain that, but it was like, okay, it's all here. It's all in my space, you know, where I sleep, where is my personal sphere. And I found that quite an interesting, yeah.
I love that. I love that. I love that it's coming to you.
Yeah. So that's probably, yeah, I think it's, for me, like this is really inspiring for me, and it's giving lots of impulses, I think. And there are more things
There are more things.
that I'm doing, yeah, and that are coming in. And
Well, why don't you just share them? Because then Akiko can take as long as she needs to. And then I'll share what I want to share.
Okay, wait. There's this. Did you hear of this movie, The Time of the Sixth Sun?
Oh yeah. I forget what it actually said in it because it was last year I think that came out, right?
No, I think
Year before?
yeah, maybe last year in winter
Okay.
solstice. Wait. So for me, this is really, really a very interesting documentary, I think. And it's giving me personally lots of insights and lots of hopes. So who is interested can have a look there. And then I was attending to a breathwork summit from the Shift Network. And that is also, getting lots of things moving because I really love breathwork. And it's going really deep for me. It's really like a key to change.
Can I just smile for a minute at you? Because I was suddenly remembering the you that I met when I first met you, and you asked me for a reading, like a consult, and I just suddenly flashed on that and how much of your personal territory you have claimed since I met you. It's like you're much calmer. You're very clear about what you're interested in, and there's been a reorientation, and I just suddenly saw it, and I just thought this needs to be seen. Tenant number 2, energy waves to be noticed. It's like I have to say, I see this, I see it. So I see you evolving, and in that, it's kind of made room for you to actually explore the things you're interested in, and to be receptive and open and available for novelty.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what's happening for me for the moment. So I'm quite, happy for the moment in a process that is intense, but happy.
Yes, because it's, because you had a lot of things that you felt that you had an unstoppable commitment to, certain ways of being and certain exterior commitments. And that doesn't feel like that's accurate anymore for you in terms of.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I have the same commitments, but a
Yes.
different conceptualization for the
Yes.
moment.
Yeah.
And that's so interesting also because it's, I think, really many things, and this course helps me with this, have to do in a way with the physicality of life, the embodied understanding of things. Because I don't know, for many decades, this tendency to create situations of dilemma. So if you go in one direction, it's wrong and you will hurt someone. If you go in the other direction, it's wrong and you will hurt someone.
Yes.
And now, interestingly, it's possible not to think in this polarity, but in terms of what is it called?
In coming together.
Yeah.
Confluence.
Yeah, in a way.
Inspiration.
Yeah, I was something like that, but it's not polarity, it's like a continuum, of
Continuum.
you can walk in this and it's okay to walk from one side to the other or something like that. So, and that's really interesting for me to see that it's possible.
And then the panther. So then the panther comes in. So I'm curious about the panther, what the panther means, symbology, the symbology of panther. Let me see. Oh wow. So this is one response, okay? It's not the response. Panthers are considered one of the animal symbols of Christ. Many
Ah,
compare the characteristics of panthers to Christ's and conclude that they are similar in many ways: gentle, beautiful, omnipotent, kind, and protective. One is the protector of humankind, whereas the other is considered to protect the animals. So I don't really know what that means. What does the panther represent? Magic, fear, death, and also positive values like power, beauty, grace, solitude, and self reliance. They hold great secrets and can instill great fear.
where did you find that? That's interesting. Which
I'll put the link in the chat. So I just put in the Google search panther symbology.
okay. Okay. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, for me, I think I didn't think even in terms of what does the panther symbolize, because it was for me just this strong imagination of this poet going to this place in Paris where the panther is held in a cage, and observing him and getting so close to him and listening so deeply to him that he really captured the movement and the state in his words, which is in German really very impressive. How he captured the in the sound of the words, the movement and the state. And yeah, and I thought, I had this feeling that maybe he felt himself reflected in this state of this animal, because he was, as a poet, really quite, I think, very close to the sublime and very open to the magic, yeah, of the sublime.
Yeah, because that was the question I asked, is like, what is the spirit? Is this your spirit animal? That was a question I asked. And that in the link I gave you, there is a link that says Black Panther symbolism and meaning. Generally speaking, Native American tradition associates Black Panther with successful hunts, leadership, strength, honor, aggression, fearlessness, clear-sightedness, and so on. So you can have a look at that and see if that feels like it rings true for you somehow. But the point that I'm experiencing in this, listening to you, Eva, is that this is what this course is for. So, we have a page, and on that page, there's information, and I can share little dots of information. But what they're designed to do is to invite you to fall off the page, like to just fall off the edge of the page, to go beyond that, because each of us has a truth to share, and the truth can change. The central core line of the truth will probably remain. I suspect that might for each of us be our messenger self, but the way we kind of crisscross it is in fact how we then explore our personalities in the flow of that experiencing and inquiring. So that's why creativity is very much about curiosity and courage. And by the way, I wrote the word courage down. So weird doing this backwards. I think that might be it. Or is it there? There it is. So courage, right? Spelt with the French. And then you've got heart and rage. So it's the passion of the heart, the raging of the heart, which I think is what the feminine rising is about now. because rage is very different from just anger. I think rage is when some deep primal necessary truth gets contravened or in some way damaged or compromised. And then this rage can come up, which is what leads us into movement, some kind of an action. Because rage is like a volcano, right? It's anger we can manage. We have anger management classes. So apparently we think that's a good thing to do. But rage, we don't have rage management classes because rage is kind of a justified anger that is not temporary. It's in a definite response to a violation of life principles. So courage, rage of the heart. I don't know. I just had to share that.
Great. Yeah.
And I think of Panther with that. For me, Panther feels in this moment quite feminine. That protective piece, that's a very feminine gesture, protective towards the kin.
I would love in another moment maybe to have a conversation about this feminine and masculine and what we have inside of us, of both parts.
Yeah.
That's quite interesting for me to know of you also, what your feeling about that is.
Let's sit with that for a minute. So I'm seeing something that when the feminine gets repressed or oppressed, that in the female, the masculine gets repressed. I don't know why, but that's just what I saw. Because the issue is for women is that we keep getting pushed, have been historically pushed outside of the realms of management, systems management, generally speaking. And that's our yanging in the world. So it seems like there's a correlation between the masculine rising without the feminine in it, but then therefore the feminine not rising because of the disappearance of the masculine in it.
Explain it a bit more, please.
I'll try. That just came to me. That's interesting. Okay, so you've got man. Let's just do it basics, right? Man, woman. Both have masculine, feminine. When the masculine, this is what's weird, is because the masculine is dominant. It's not informed by the feminine, just like rational, emotional, sensory become the inverse of themselves when they're not balanced by the other two. Each of them have that potential to lead to violence, irrationality, and lack of empathy in extreme measures. So that's the masculine without the feminine. But what happens then in women, because we represent the feminine in a particular way, and the masculine has squashed us down, we haven't been able to make friends with the masculine part of ourselves. We haven't had a model for it. And we also haven't had permission, because the passive, in a way, requires space in which to emerge. And space could also be considered permission. So permission by society, encouragement, mirroring.
I don't know. For me, it sounds like it makes sense. But you know that my experience in writing is more like it's quite difficult. It's quite difficult to write from a female source because I'm so rooted in this tradition that is basically like the standards were set for millennia by men, so that it's so difficult to dive into this possibility of another way of writing, another way of, expressing. Yeah, that's what comes spontaneously to me.
I think when part of ourselves is still having to protect ourselves, we're still really in a survival mode. It makes it less safe to explore because there's a part of us busy making sure we're safe. That's a big job. And it's a subtle energy job. It translates into real life too, in terms of the physicality of life.
So when you are writing, Claire, for example, a poem like this one of The Mountains Breathe.
Oh, you read that?
Yeah, I love that, especially
Oh,
that one.
that's the
The
video, you mean?
Yeah,
Okay. I thought you were referring to an article I wrote called Why Shouldn't We Just Blow Up Mountains?
I haven't seen that,
Okay.
but I would love to. So when you are creating something like this, what is maybe I don't know. For me, it was a sound poem, something like that.
Yes, yes.
What do you feel is writing? Does it have a gender? That which is perceiving, is it is it for you a female way of feeling of connecting? Or is it informed by something masculine? Or are you neutral when you are in contact?
I think it's beyond gender. I think gender is a human issue. Not just human, of course, because all the animals typically, like most of them, have a gender. But it's not in those realms. So it's coming from a cool place in terms of the temperature. It's light. There's a lot of spaciousness. It's not compressed. Um, it's not rushed either. So I have opened myself to connection. So I know that we might perceive that therefore as feminine, right? That's what we think of as the feminine. I don't know why this is relevant, but this just popped into my mind. So indulge me because maybe you know why, one of you, this is relevant to this moment in this conversation. Oh, I think Tina's trying to come in. So 2 days ago, I was teaching little 6-year-olds music. And I teach them one-on-one most of the time for half an hour. And they're little. And I think this little girl might be even younger than 6. And I was sitting at the keyboard with her. Her mother was in the next door room. This was in a community center. And she was to my right. And I was showing her things on the piano. I was playing 2 notes at the same time and having her sing with me. And I thought I saw out of the corner of my eye that she was playing with herself, literally with her privates, in the periphery of my vision. And I kind of overruled it. I thought, no, why would she be doing that in this moment, in this context? It was so out of context. I haven't had children, right? So I'm not familiar with some of the things that can happen. And then, not many seconds later, I turned to face her and she was literally touching herself. She had no underpants on. I mean, she had arrived with no underpants, but I didn't know this because she was wearing quite a long dress. And I just thought to myself, what's she doing? Why is this the moment that this is her inclination? And she was very calm. There was no agitation or anything like that. And so I just stood up and I said, you know, you need to stop doing that and please pull your dress down. And then moved on. And I told the people that hire me so that they could talk to the mother about it. But I don't know why, but I couldn't understand why in this moment is spirit showing me a young girl's vulva, her opening, basically. You know, what am I meant to take from that? What's, because there's multiple realities true at the same time. So one is that whatever that was something to do with her. But then there's these other layers where we can interpret, in addition, we can interpret, well, what, I was the one that was sitting there. It wasn't Eva or Akiko or the person next door. I was the one sitting there. And she's never done it before. Why me? Why was I meant to witness that? And I don't have an answer. But for some reason, because I just went like this, and I was talking about being open, and then that popped in. This is that thing about noticing, you know, experiencer and observer, that when we can observe the experience we're having without trying to change it or improve it or even analyze it, like letting that be what it is. But then, so not here it is doing its thing, but then I can look at that with my multidimensionality and ask questions. So I'm just putting that into the room, and I'm not sure that there's if what that means in terms of, is there a next thought from there, or does that connect? Does that stimulate a thought? Even if it seems ridiculous, does it stimulate a thought for you? Either of you? Hi, Tina.
Hello.
What a time for somebody to come into the conversation.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So does Eva, because of what you've kind of brought forward in the conversation, is there something, anything about that that touches on something else for you?
As you're saying that, yeah, I'm lots of things are popping into my mind. Okay, to begin, on an intellectual level, there is this, when I was back then, when I was young and studied literature theory, there was this guy, this psychoanalyst called Lacan, who centered his whole theory of, yeah, he was a post-structuralist, I think, and he centered his theory around the phallus. Okay, so the whole language interpretation was centered around the male genital. And he had students, female students, who came up with their own theories, and as good students, they would center their theories around the vulva. All very serious stuff in university. It's kind of weird, but okay, that was a time. I think it came up, I think that was in the 70s, something like that. It was Luce Irigaray, and what was the name of the other one that got famous with this stuff? Okay, anyway, those female students, I think what I found interesting about what they stated about female writing, écriture féminine, was I think that it was more really this feeling into the things and listening when I got that right, because it really convinced me that it was really this, not so much I create that reality, but this, I step into it and listen to it and express it. And it was in a way interesting that I think it was the first step from this super intellectual stuff into a more embodied version of thinking. So first thing, if we want to talk about this, the vulva in this sense has a cultural meaning. So, but this will come to me because I have thought about that. So for me, this could be a possible layer of interpretation when you are talking about writing the feminine. And you have been thinking about that. On the other hand, I would always think, okay, if I witness something like that, what am I feeling? Because I think this is for sure part of how it forms your reality. What were you feeling? Was it just confusion? Was it shame? Was it anger? Was it, whatever? What is your relation to that? And on the other hand, it might also be, I don't know, for example, I don't know in case of the mother, but in the case of the children, it could easily be a kind of trying to self-regulate with something for the part of the child. So the child might not have, or they don't have this type of consciousness. So from that part, it might be something quite innocent. So that's my thoughts on that.
Thank you. Okay, so this idea that I mentioned about like just wandering off the page, I just want to reinforce the word wander because I looked it up because I'm doing a talk, Tina knows this, at Humanity Rising on the 28th of this month. And I describe myself as a wanderer. It just came out that way. And I was like, well, that's interesting. Why would I use that word? So I looked up the etymology, as you do, right? And it's related to the wind. And I was really excited. I was like, I am the wind. I am the wind. And so it's like, gosh, there it is. And so this just feels like a really good way to represent what I'm talking about. So we need to wander off the page, just wander off the page and allowing this conversation to meander. So now we're in the water element, meander like a river. We can become, it's like our antenna that are all around each of us can become alert. So that's why this feels relevant to just see where the dots connect, because then we kind of become a collective mind, a collective sensitive system. I'm going to ask Akiko, would you like to share anything, including just how are you and what's been going on for you this week?
Yeah, since last time we met, didn't really happen anything mysterious. I had a birthday and people came,
yes,
kind of as a surprise, and that was fun. And otherwise, I don't know, we don't share the dream yet, right? Otherwise,
you can share the dream.
Yeah, actually, I didn't really remember the dreams until this morning. Last night, I thought, I haven't remembered the dreams. Maybe I can't share anything. But then I dreamt about the things this morning, and I woke up kind of a little bit scared and kind of wondering what. And then anyway, this day today I've been kind of frustrated because I got the, what do you call that? Printer for the computer, but that printer is too old for my Mac because I updated it and they become newer and it doesn't fit. And then I tried with the old computer, and the old computer and the printer fit, but the old Mac is too old, so I couldn't use the Google Drive where I gathered all the files I wanted to print out. So I've been struggling what to do. Of course, should be a way, but it didn't go so smoothly. So that's why I was a little bit frustrated today. And while I was listening to Eva, I thought kind of, wow, I haven't really spent the time with my thoughts lately. I was more into my daily life and trying to maybe still get used to be alone and doing everything alone, and like every day carrying the wood have been my kind of good kind of practice. And so I thought I'd been living in a kind of reality too much, maybe. I haven't really spending a time wondering things, or I've been talking to myself all the time, of course, but haven't been really into that kind of state. That's
And
what
yet,
I
you said this morning you remembered some of your dreams.
Yes, but it wasn't really mysterious. It was somehow really strange because the dream is kind of go to this scene to something different suddenly or like that. But only the last part I remember was that I was in a kind of summer house, kind of, simple house with my Japanese mother and father. And there was a kind of outhouse, and we noticed that there is something living there, some kind of animal or something, and we couldn't understand what it was. And then I tried to find what it was. So I went out to the other house, the outhouse, but I couldn't find anything. But I felt something is there. And then anyway, I couldn't find. So I came back to the main house, but then I saw a little, not a little, but this kind of dinosaur, but the smaller. So dinosaur, but it's like the height was like like a window height.
Okay. But
Yeah,
that was at the outhouse, or that was somewhere else?
The main house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the outhouse, I couldn't find anything, but when I came back to the house with my father and mother was inside, my stepmother, I mean, was inside. And when I came back, I saw a dinosaur, but smaller. So it's maybe a child or baby dinosaur, but it's a dinosaur, so it's not really baby. And then I didn't know what to do because it's huge for me, even though it's a child. And I tried to hide it from the dinosaur, and then dinosaur kind of didn't see me. And then I went to the back of the house and I kind of knocked the window to sign the mother that there is a dinosaur. But then she noticed, and then I thought, oh, they know it. So I came back and trying to go inside, and then I found that the dinosaur wasn't there. So I went inside, and then I saw my father behind the wall, and then I suddenly heard screaming. So mother was kind of screaming a lot, screaming so much, and then lots of noise. And then my father was saying that it's too late. And I didn't know how that dinosaur came into the kitchen because it happened really quickly. And then my father said like that. So I thought, first I thought, why he say that? Because I couldn't think logically. And then I was so scared because of the mother was screaming and we couldn't do anything. I didn't see the scene. And I was so, I think I was scared. And then suddenly I woke up, but I was still in the dream. And then suddenly I kind of noticed that, yeah, of course, we couldn't have saved her because she was a dinosaur. And maybe the dinosaur wasn't really, like wanted to eat her or anything, but it was like a cat and little mouse. Mother was kind of like this inside. So maybe for the little dinosaur, it was like a toy. So she just broke the window or something and came in and maybe trying to kind of do something with her. And that's what I kind of came to the conclusion when I woke up. But then I thought, I should write to father and mother. And then I saw a message from father in the morning. I opened the telephone and then he said, everything fine here, blah, 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 without I'm asking or anything. But at that moment in the dream, when I saw my father, he said, no, it's too late. She will die. And then he was like, it's okay, I will stay here and die too, kind of thing. He didn't say that, but I heard that. And then I thought, why he has that? Why he is not fighting, I thought. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe something, while I'm talking now, I thought, why? Yeah, maybe it's more about my father. It's not the stepmother. I wrote to her today too, but maybe it was my father, my feeling about him. Maybe it was kind of reflected. But it was interesting because I didn't see any movie or anything about the dinosaur, but it came. And I wasn't really worrying about my father either because he came out from the hospital and he's okay, and he might operate before the summer, but seems like he is okay. So I wasn't really thinking about them, but it was my dream. That was I think since the last time, this was the most vivid dream I could remember.
I'd love to just reflect back something, and I'd love anyone else to, if that's okay. I was struck by the outhouse. So you got the main house where we live, and then the outhouse. And the fact that you knew that there was an animal living there, even though you couldn't find it. And the outhouse, I associate that and the animal with our wildness. And it's, in a way, there is banished from the main house and it's in the outhouse. And what happens to the whole picture when we put our wildness outside, away from us? And the fact that you knew it was there, you couldn't find it, but you were looking for it, that instinctual self that understands how important it is to connect with these parts of ourselves, with these parts of you. And yeah, that knowing, this longing, Fernweh, Sehnsucht, whichever, this feeling of longing to reconnect, that our wildness inspires in us, agitates in us. So the fact that your mother, the feminine, if we think back to the earlier sharing with Eva and her talking, that the feminine was killed. It seems that that's what happened. It sounds like it.
Yeah, sounds like it. I don't know,
Sounds
but
like it.
yeah.
And was it your biological mother or your stepmother?
Stepmother. But stepmother, but she has been with my father really long time, since I was 7.
Right.
Yeah. But I haven't lived with them, but they were together. They have been together.
Well, the things that came to me with this idea of the animal residing sort of surreptitiously, not seeable. I got a feeling of loneliness and sadness when I pictured that. And also the cold, because it's so cold where you are, right? So this idea that although that may not have been the case in the dream, but this sort of solitude, yeah, and the thread that drew you to it. So the dinosaur part is interesting. I think I don't know. I personally don't have anything to contribute right now, at least, to that part of it in terms of, well, what's the dinosaur? Especially that, let's remember, you said you think it's a baby dinosaur.
Yeah, baby
and
dinosaur.
that it was more of a playing with a toy, so accidentally killing your mother rather than because he wanted to eat her, or
no, I didn't think like that. My feeling was that he wanted to play.
Yes.
Yeah.
Eva, any thoughts you would like to share that this just sparks in you, however illogical it might seem?
Yeah, different things. What struck me most was when I was listening to Akiko, and I really had a very vivid impression, I don't know, of the dream, like and it felt like I was seeing it in my inner eye. And I had also be seeing what you shared, Claire, about the music classes, and I had this moment of disorientation where I wondered who shared his dream and who shared a real life experience. um, yeah, because what you shared was, if I think about it again, it was so dreamlike.
With the
in
little
a
girl,
way.
you're talking about what I shared.
Yeah,
Okay.
and with Akiko stream, I also had this, I don't know, this feeling of being scared, and I was all the time wondering about this little dinosaur, because this mentioning it as a baby, everything you said about the dinosaur gave me this feeling of, I don't know, in a way, a bit like sympathy, not, like, okay, this thing is dangerous, but it was not like, yeah, as you said, it's not evil or something like that.
Mm.
And I would love to know, in this dream, Akiko, when you saw this dinosaur, what did you feel in the first moment in your dream?
I wasn't scared because it was a dinosaur. Because I'm not scared by dinosaur. Dinosaur I like. And it was a baby one, but of course I didn't want to go close to that, and I wanted to tell my father and mother about it, but I didn't know what to do, basically.
Were you a baby or were you an adult? Do you know?
I was adult.
Okay.
Yeah. And my father was really old, like now, 80 something.
Can
Yeah.
I share something? Okay, so I
Yeah.
just had a thought.
Okay.
When we abdicate our feminine power, because you were an adult, so technically you had the power to meet this situation, but you abdicate it to your guardians, parents, whatever, the people that are kind of in charge of your safety. And it killed your protective feminine, like it killed this external protector.
Mm.
So in a way, by giving up your power, you were forced, because then she was removed from the picture. One thought is, one of a million thoughts, is that this is a way for your subconscious saying to you, you have that power to deal with dinosaurs, to deal with these surprises. You might feel like you need the external protection or validation or support, and I know that in one way we do all need that, but also when push comes to shove, as we say in England, you have it in you. You have them in you, their wisdom and knowledge, and your own that came in with you when you were born.
And
So
what was
something.
it? Because I really wonder, as my father, I think, is more or less the same age as your father. And for me, I really wonder, this relationship to death that he has or seems to have in your dream. What did you feel when he said, because if I understood well, you were so scared that you didn't see the scene. You just saw heard your stepmother screaming.
Yeah, because I was behind the wall. I
Yeah.
couldn't see it.
Okay.
I just came in from the door and then I saw my father standing there and then the wall and then the kind of opening to the kitchen. But he wasn't in the kitchen, but she was in the kitchen with the dinosaur and she was screaming. And I actually maybe couldn't move or something because I was so scared with this really screaming. Maybe I was shocked or something. Yeah.
And your father, was he paralyzed or was he like,
He
okay,
was like kind of standing there, but she was like, no, it's too late, something like that.
She said it's too late.
No, he said,
Right.
he said it's too late. And then with that word, I felt that he didn't have anything he can do to help her. And at the same time, he also giving up, I felt. And then I thought, I have to run away, I thought.
Oh, you thought you had to run away. So the masculine couldn't save you,
No.
right?
Mm.
When you gave up the feminine, the masculine still couldn't save you.
No.
And when you gave up your wildness, just from the dream's perspective, it caused chaos in your universe.
Mm-hmm.
But the masculine wasn't capable. I think for me, I'm hearing that because of one of the things I'm reflecting on is the mistakes I've made based on this assumption, this running assumption that I need protection from men, that men somehow have the solutions, they have the finances, they have the connections, they have the privilege, and they have the power. And so I grew up in a gender culture where that was the norm.
Mm.
And
Okay.
and so I was just reflecting on this literally just yesterday, how much chaos that's caused in my life, living with that as a continuum, not leaving it there where I was as a child, but actually living through that still. And that as long as that were the case, that will be the case, right? That will still be the happening. And the men in my life that have come forward, who have come forward as knights on shining armor to say, I'm going to make this happen for you, and I'm going to make this happen for you. And they weren't able to, because they're not as qualified as I am to do it.
Mm. Mm.
Interesting. I'm noticing the time, and I want to share something new, but is it okay if we go to Tina?
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing that. That was
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Gosh, I love how you
Thank you, Akiko.
Yeah.
It became more interesting, my dream, after I'm hearing from you and Eva.
Exactly. Well, and I seem to remember you asking last week, do we really need to write them down if they're not interesting? And we all said yes. Because we don't know until we reflect back what has the relevance that we might benefit from. So when you started today by saying, well, I'm not really, just kind of like, and then, well, I can't really remember it. And then, blah, blah, blah.
Very much.
So
Thank you.
I'm glad. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tina, what's been going on in your sort of interior, exterior world this week since we met?
Well, I wanted to comment on or speculate on the dream. I don't know if you all have heard, I know there's different schools of dream analysis or whatever, but I know I've heard that everyone in your dream is you. even though you dream about familiar people, you know, friends, relatives, whatever. And even the dinosaur is kind of that, maybe that, as Claire was saying, that wild part of you. And then the chaos, you know, whether it's the, you know, your father was you and your stepmother was you, you know, and yeah, just some sort of this. And I too had the feeling like, oh, I bet it was cute. You know, when you talked about the baby dinosaur, I'm just not feeling frightened of it at first at all. Like that wild part of you is, oh, yay, it's discovery. It's, you know, and then, but then, you know, the stepmother like screaming and stuff is, I felt, you know, confusion. And then your father saying, oh, it's too late. And I don't know. So what any of that means, but yeah, I've been told that everything in our dream is us. And also when we dream about a house, that's us too. You know, there's something about rooms or, you know, so there's this outhouse part of you that's been maybe not alienated, but, you know,
Separated.
undiscovered, let's say undiscovered. And then the main house is familiar. So I don't know what any of that means, but it's an interesting dream for sure. Yeah. So yeah, thanks. I'll be thinking about that. But I haven't remembered any of my dreams. I didn't write that. I don't. I know I dream. I just don't. Maybe none of them this past week were at all stood out or anything. You know. So
How about daydreams,
yeah.
Tina? Any daydreaming?
Oh. Some. Oh. Well, I'm looking forward to going to Costa Rica on the 22nd, which is coming up. And yeah, some daydreams about how that will be. Looking forward to it for sure. Yeah, that's maybe about it. I don't know. I've been busy with kind of like Akiko said, with doing tasks that I don't enjoy, like being the treasurer of the nonprofit Houston NBC and doing a lot of stuff with that. Tax time is coming up and I'm not an accountant. I can't do QuickBooks. I know this. And so kind of consumed with tasks that I would rather not be doing. So yeah, just an awareness of, I sure wish I was doing things that I wanted to be doing. You know, this have to feeling, a lot of have to versus I choose to lately. Maybe that's why I'm really looking forward to getting away. Yeah.
Feed your imagination.
Oh, and our imagination. And our one of our dogs this past Monday was not a good day. She got her paw stuck in it's hard to explain, this kind of iron fence that has these sort of thin iron kind of decorative, you know, she went on one side of it and I guess she came out the other, and this bar hooked thing, wire thing, but it's kind of thick, it went through her paw pad, you know, and was stuck, and she was screaming. And I heard all this commotion in the backyard and I thought, oh, the dogs are they play fight, you know. And I see the other one who has actually a collar that's meant to keep her from going close to the fence so that she won't dig under and go into the neighbor's yard. I guess she risked that. She went through it, you know, maybe got that slight correction, and she was trying to help Bella. I'm sure it was trying to help, but it looked like they were fighting, you know, and she was like jumping around. It was talk about chaos. So then I called for Gary. I'm like, Gary, how? She's, you know, and I didn't know, see how to help Bella because she's like pulling, and the more she pulled, the more it drove through her little paw pad. So then Gary goes, get the wire cutters. I'm like, what do wire cutters look like? So I run in the garage and there's these, I grabbed some pliers, some other thing that looked like it could be a wire cutter. And he's like, trying cut. Well, it came off of the fence, but it was still this long, sticking out of her paw. So he managed to actually get it through, Poor thing, poor Bella, it was bleeding, but not like a whole lot. So she kind of was limping and doing the three-legged thing. And, we took her to the vet. Long story short, it was okay. They x-rayed and she's on some medicine, but that was more excitement than for one day than what I enjoy, but I'm glad she was okay. And I was just kind of touched by Cassie, the other one, kind of, she risked going through that invisible fence thing, and I'm sure it was giving her like a shock, but she was trying to help, So anyway, that was the most excitement I guess we've had lately.
Oof, Tina, I
Yeah.
understood she
Yeah.
passed. I understood she had died in this
Oh
incident. And when you
no.
said she was okay, it was like,
Oh.
I
Oh,
thought like, how can she describe
Yeah.
this agony when she, okay, so great.
Yeah, it was okay. And I just, yeah, it was, at the vet's office, they were like, well, we have something tomorrow. And it wasn't quite, it was one of those, I called and it's like, okay, is this an emergency? No, but I want her to be seen like soon, And so, yeah, that's what happened. But, yeah, poor thing. Yep.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. That's so traumatic.
Yeah,
I felt it.
really.
It's like,
Yeah.
ouch, ouch, ouch.
I know. Ow.
Oh. Okay, I'm going to screen share something with you all. I think I'll just share the whole screen, even though it's a little bit messy. This may seem so out of left field, but I will explain why I'm sharing this with you. And is that big enough? Maybe I'll just go full size. It's short.
Solitons are a complex hydrodynamic phenomenon. They are rarely observed in typical operating conditions and require several key factors for their generation. Solitons are generated by a vessel operating at critical through depth in a restricted waterway, such as in a channel. Upon generation, solitons travel ahead of the vessel at supercritical speeds and have a form such that they can travel large distances with little change in speed or amplitude if the conditions remain consistent. Here we can see a towed model in a channel traveling in the transcritical through depth region that was continuously generating solitons. The maximum speed of a wave is limited by the depth of the water it is traveling in. The deeper the water, the faster the wave can travel. This allows tsunamis to travel at very high speeds across deep oceans. Through depth is a relationship between vessel speed and the depth of the water. If a vessel is traveling at a critical through depth of 1, it is going the maximum speed of the waves it is generating. A vessel operating in the subcritical through depth region, which is less than a through depth of approximately 0.7, will produce what is known as a Kelvin wake. The subcritical region is where the majority of vessels operate, as few have the power to overcome the resistance encountered in the transcritical region. Vessels that operate in the supercritical region, however, must pass through the transcritical and critical regions, and when a through depth of 0.7 is exceeded, the wake begins to diverge away from the vessel. As a vessel approaches a critical through depth of 1, it produces a wave of translation due to the maximum wave speed. If this energy is contained, such as in a channel, it will continuously disperse ahead of the vessel in the form of soliton waves. Whilst generating solitons, the vessel also undergoes a dynamic oscillatory response. Shown here is the dynamic trim of the model, fluctuating as each soliton generates and disperses ahead of the model.
why, you might wonder, would I share that with you? What's all that got to do with wildness and creativity? There are some key elements to this that I think are super duper exciting. And I actually purchased the URL called the Soliton Zone. There is, in fact, let me find it. There's a, see if it's here. I'm just going to share this one thing with you. I don't think it has sound. Oh, I might have to. Where's the, let me. Oh. I'm trying to find. Where's the actual. I don't have my reference for where it is. Let me try one other thing. I'll have to just post it. I'll post it in the Mighty Networks. But what I wanted to show you is that basically when a wave passes, the way a soliton is created, as you saw, there's certain things that need to be in place, certain conditions. And then instead of the waves going backwards at the hull of the boat, they go in front of it. Okay, so that's the main point. They go in front of it and they have a life of their own. And what's unique about them is that they don't fade. They don't dissipate really fast. And they also don't grow higher and higher indefinitely. So they kind of maintain themselves and move forward ahead of the impulse that created it. As it passes through any other waves that it encounters, it just passes through. So it doesn't exactly maintain itself. So let's say that's a bigger wave passing through the smaller one. As it's doing this, it blends with this, but it is in fact energy traveling. It's energy just traveling, and it knows itself. It knows where it's going. And so certain conditions allow for it to become apparent. How I'm seeing that is that in a way, it's the physics of new ideas coming to be. And it's the physics of, novelty. So the soliton zone, the conditions are depth, speed, and height. These are three qualities of it. And you could think of speed as the conviction. So I'm thinking like this is how memes happen, MEMES. So speed might be translated as conviction in terms of how we experience it. Height could also be seen as inspiration, like how multidimensional is our thinking? How open are we as receptors for new ideas? And then depth could be relevance in terms of how much a part of these times is an idea, how much is it relevant in its presence to create change, to create novelty. And then the other part they mentioned is that the soliton wave in that experiment only shows up because there's a containment, right? There's a certain width to the canal itself. And so I'm thinking from the human experience, the containment could be seen as focus, because that containment focuses the dynamics. They don't just dissipate and fall away. Yeah, hang on, what's the other part of this? I love the fact that the deeper the water, the faster the soliton gets momentum. So if we think of water depth as the relevance of it, like it's coming in at its own right time, that then it can travel. And if it's fast, I think also the fact that it can travel through things, there isn't a resistance. So when it's doing this, which is what the other video will show you, it doesn't fight this. It just travels through it. There's no defending, there's no arguing, convincing, persuading. It's not trying to change anything. It's ignoring it in a way. It's traveling through it, and it's not losing energy when it does that. And if you think about interpersonal dynamics, when we try and fight someone's idea because we know that it's wrong or we just don't like it for whatever reason, or if someone doesn't like our idea and we try and defend it, then we kind of get into this locked situation, and the energy, our energy, gets aggravated. And when it's aggravated, that in a way dissipates its focus, which would have been the containment. So when somebody disagrees with one of our bright ideas, instead of saying, oh no, you just don't understand, let me explain it this way, it's actually the freest thing we can do for our energy is to just go, okay, thanks, and just let it exist, like this wave, let it exist. You don't have to squish the wave or correct it. You don't have to take it with you. That wave will do whatever it's going to do at some point. And there's another word that comes in here. I'll put it in the chat. This is what's particularly exciting to me. So normally waves, whether it's through water or sky, air, earth, anything, because these are not site specific events. What normally happens is energy goes out or is created, and there's a thing called equipartition, which is like this. Think of it that way. Equi means equal, so it means it spreads out. So that's why when we see, like if we throw a pebble in a lake, we'll see activity and then it just kind of fades, and it spreads itself out through the lattice, through the texture, the mass of its environment, and it's kind of like an equal rights. I'm going to go everywhere until I run out of energy, and then I'm just going to have a nap. I'm just going to blend in with everything else. So that's typically what happens with waves and wave interference. And what's so unique about the soliton is that it's not affected by the same laws of physics in the same way. So it's real, but it has its own rules. And it's physics. And so the fact that it's a matter of what are the conditions, the right conditions for this novelty to emerge and know itself, to be seen. And I think I'm sharing this in the context of art and creativity and wild soul art, wild soul artist, because there are ideal conditions for our release. And this morning I noticed something on Facebook, I'm glad I'm remembering to say this, where they commented, someone made a comment on this idea, and there was a woman sitting on a couch, and it was all beautifully colourful, and it looked very positive, and the quote was, she's really let herself go. And so there was a whole conversation going on about the female and these rules that exist that are meant to have a say in what is attractive in a female's appearance, what is attractive, what is unattractive. And so normally that's a very rude thing. Oh, she's really let herself go. In other words, she's overeating, or she's not exercising, or she doesn't care anymore, or she doesn't clean her house. That's the associations I have with that phrase. But another way of that, looking at that, let herself go, is that she's released herself. She has freed herself. It's the same meaning. in terms of literal language. She let herself out. So the deep listening that we're all doing, where we're kind of constantly available for connection, is our way of creating these soliton zones. And if you are a visual person in terms of visual arts, for instance, then you need certain conditions. You know, for me, I need certain paints. I need something to lean on. I need a paintbrush. So that's part of my requirements in order to be able to let that wave travel through me. So we each have certain tools. So for you, Akiko, it's having a printer that matches up. And so part of your frustration is knowing that you're being limited because they don't know how to talk to each other, and that there's extra work involved to find resolution for that. And then I don't know, I have to share this even though it's sort of like over here. I was walking the other day and I just had this blazing insight of understanding something that I loved, and it's this. I grew up hearing Christianity talking about, you know, Jesus saying, I am the way, the only way. I am the way, the only way. And because of that, of course, there have been multiple wars and people being shamed, and like just a lot of distress generated by this idea that if you don't choose Christ, you're going to hell. So that's the background, right? And then I just suddenly, it's like, oh my God, when he was saying that, he was in the middle of channeling or doing a parable or just talking, where he was saying as an example, for myself, I am the only way to get to my enlightenment. I am the only portal through which I can transform my reality that I'm experiencing every day. And he was saying it because that is what's true for each of us. So it's not that he, the person, is our portal, and if we don't go through him, we're fucked. It's not that. But that's kind of how it's been sold. That's how I've heard it being sold. And the idea that actually what he was doing was liberating us in his teachings to recognize that no one has authority over us, because no one is the gatekeeper except us to each of ourselves. So I am the only way. I can't borrow power from the masculine or a man. I have to find my masculine here.
I would love to
Go ahead.
go with you there and say that I heard some weeks ago, and I think in relationship to this time of the sixth sun, that Christ, Jesus, was the one with whom this era began, that humanity and divinity could be thought in the same, that it could be the same, that this was really mainly what he wanted to bring through, and that all the other stuff, inventions of people who seeked power. And that it's really, for me, this was really like, that's true. It's really like divinity and humanity. If he can, you can. If he can, I can. So that was really, yeah.
Christianity did an inversion on it because of its unbalanced knowing biases. And instead of it being the thing that is ultimate liberation for every human being on earth, it became an entrapment. So it's the opposite of what he was teaching. And I think this is why I've had personally my own instinctual aversion to Christianity, typically speaking. I've been lucky enough to meet some incredible people who identify with Christ, but I don't necessarily that I can't lump them in with the whole of Christianity. So there's more to say on the Soliton, and it'll come into our conversations more now that I've introduced it, and I'm going to upload some links to videos related to it. But I think the best thing that we can each keep doing is paying attention, which is one of the, well, it's the second tenet, to pay attention so that things.
Just one question.
Yeah, yeah.
The word soliton, what does it mean, or what?
Solitary wave.
Aha, okay.
I loved that video, how I guess, was the speed slower or was it the depth that was when the wake was behind the vessel?
The speed, I think, it's a good question. I think
it was both of those, maybe the speed and depth, or
oh,
it-
well, the way it transitions from being like this to being like this
right, and then
is when
yeah,
the
I love
what's
that.
called the Froude depth.
Whatever
which
that, and I
is
didn't know that
speed.
word, but then fruit
It's
depth, whatever.
Froude depth. That's related to the speed. So when it gets to the right speed in relation to its environment, remember all of these are relational, then, and it gets to 1, that's when the soliton appears. So in other words, it becomes neutrally, like it's no longer in separation in the past, because those waves are traveling backwards. This wave is traveling to the future, traveling ahead of us. So that's it. You could argue that when we reach unity consciousness with something, that it's freed up to move forwards into the world. So when we become one, it's, there's a lot to play with there.
Yeah.
Well, we've actually managed to finish nearer than official finishing time. That's pretty incredible. I'm so touched by the conversation today and by what each of you have sort of thought about and shared and asked and considered with each other, with all of us. I know one of my impulses is to go and find the book Alice in the Looking Glass. I keep getting nudged to go and get that. It's been years since I looked at that book. And to do more research on the Soliton, because I'm actually really interested in how creativity relates to our cosmology, our physics. Because I've done a lot of work with dynamic emergence, especially on how it relates to our psychology and our decision making as we experience energy. But to relate it directly to physics is such a turn on for me. I'm such a geek. I really love that territory.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to say anything as a way? How should we say goodbye today? Well, this is nice, just looking at each other. Thank you so much for being interested in the being here. It's nice to have your company.
Yeah.
And I want to say, Claire, you are really good at giving us space for sharing and also taking everything up and kind of, make things clearer.
Good. Oh, thank you. I appreciate hearing that. Thanks, Kiko.
Yeah. One word for me is discovery, that from today that just stands out.
And for me, I think it's unity, because this idea of like, as you wander around an environment and let it speak to you, that's the unity principle of the soliton. That's when you enter the soliton zone, I think, where there is ease, where we're no longer in friction or in contradiction, but simply in the flow. The soliton zone is very much about flow. I love it. I mean, we've got physics now to explain creativity.
Yes.
So,
Quantum
yeah.
physics and Zen, how that, you know, Zen and the art of motorcycle maintenance. And what was the other book of that showed how Zen and physics? Oh, I forget. Prissig, I think, wrote that one. But there's a, you know, that they really, there's some, speaking of unity, there's a, it converges, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, from an energetic perspective, looking at literally studying the energy of things, because they don't even have a real good definition of energy in science.
Right.
It's
MC squared, but you know.
well, that's one way, and then
Well,
another
E
way.
is not energy though, is it? Or yes, it is. Mass times speed of light. Yeah. E isn't, the big E is energy, but a definition that doesn't include the word, right? Something, you know, outside of it, right?
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. That's interesting. I can't find my relevant links. Everything's hiding. Ah, that's why. Okay. Let me share with you the definition of energy. And this is so desperately sad, I think, as a definition of energy, because to me, energy is everything about aliveness. And the definition I found that in one place was energy is the measure of a physical system's ability to do work. I mean, how dull is that?
Yeah, it's dull.
Dull. There's nothing fizzy about that.
No.
Yeah, but it's, you know, for me, it's sometimes, I think that's my experience of our conversation today was really like, oof, you know, what you shared, Tina, the episode with the dog and the paw, it was like me, like, oh, what a nightmare. And it was really, all we were sharing, for me, it was like on the edge. It could have been a dream. It could have been real. Okay, the dinosaur, but yeah, but anyway, you know, you don't know, because also it's to the same degree absurd, I think, for someone like Claire or some to read this definition of energy and see, okay, that's what they think is real. Or, you know, or IKEA writing me today, telling me, we will cancel your paying card here because you haven't used it in 36 months. But don't worry, you might you might order a credit card from us. And I'm like, why should I be worrying if I haven't used it? You know, it's all the reality. To me, that was like another feeling of that. What are they? What am I?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Different realities.
Yes.
All right, my dears, I have to run. It's
Bye,
so
you
nice
all.
to spend today with you, and see you online. See you soon.
See you next time.
Thank you.
I'll upload
Bye.
this recording onto Mighty Networks.
Wow.
And how homework too?
Yeah. I'll
Okay.
ask what to do. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye all.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you all.
Thank you.